because they don't know how the universe truly works, because their math has been off for so long, because their fundamentals are wrong. Now everything has this expiration and there's a loss to everything when the universe is perfectly balanced, when you utilize it properly. And that's why I wanted to introduce the wave conjugations and the mirror shapes and all of these things, defining the electric field, defining the magnetic field, and the constitution between them being the linchpin. Because the linchpin, as you'll see in a second, it has that same center as that tetrine space. The magnetic field, the feminine side, all of this is circular. That's the full expansion. This is the common factor or the constitution between the micro and the macro. That's what the linchpin was. And that's what we're about to see in the video. Was it able to come up, Jamie?
All right, here we go.
This is rebuilding the planet Saturn. Go ahead.
The sound was coming through your speakers, is that what it was? Time for a new laptop?
You know what's going on.
Government
They do not want you. We're about to kill gravity. We're about to kill their god, gravity, and they don't want that.
Here we go. From the beginning.
I have two groups of vortexes, which are just like tornadoes, spinning tornadoes that are pointing towards the center. As I highlight this object here, you'll see it, that yellow line, right? So there's a bunch of those in there. There's actually 16 of them, and I'll highlight them all. There. And rid of that just so you can kind of see a little bit better. So they're all pointing towards the center, but they're arranged in what we call the linchpin configuration. I'm going to pretend like you never heard of that before. So there's one on the top, and then three, in groups of three around, that are spaced at 120 degrees apart. And the tilt of these ones on the bottom here is 109.5 degrees in relationship to the top ones. They're creating this flat space on the top and the bottom. And they're spaced at 120 degrees radially. And then inside the model is three groups.
Jamie, there's two sounds playing simultaneously.
No, he's got sound in the background.
Oh,
That's my wife talking. We're in the kitchen, and he's just explaining this over Skype. This is over Skype.
I was confused. Go ahead.
Up to 1,000 pounds, from 2.2 pounds to 1,000 pounds. And there's no gravity whatsoever in this model. There's no center attractor. So it's just vortexes and two magnetic fields, a north and a south polarity, and one harmonic resonance, which is emanating a vibration in the field. In this region here where these vortexes are pointed, so it kind of just oscillates to give it a little bit of randomness in motion so that the particles will kind of interact and bounce around like smoke or water, waves in water. And then when I hit play, it does it all by itself using physics simulation, so there's no animations at all in this model. And when I play it, this is what pops out.
Holy fuck.
Wow.
And then when I look down at the top, it makes the actual hexagon that NASA has observed on the top of Saturn without any gravity. And you'll see that you get a surface of the sphere on the inside with the heavier particles. So the colors...
Are you basically saying, is this saying that you guys could recreate planets?
Yes, this is a particle simulation of the physics involved in making up the planet Saturn.
Wow.
Like all the... Yeah. So the heavier particles are creating the red and the green.
Can I pause this for a second?
Yeah.
So is he saying that just by doing these calculations, it created the exact form of Saturn, including the rings?
Just the exact form of it.
Just with the
So you
calculations.
change the angles of incidence that these linchpins, because remember, each one of these are opposing vortices. So there's 12 vortices to this that are opposing. So once the angles of incidence change, you change the motion and pressure conditions, you can now change the condition or the crystallization. So I was saying with the periodic table, now because we have the angles of incidence, material engineering can now separate the space between carbon and nitrogen or carbon and boron and have the same elements of titanium, vanadium, chromium, magnesium, and iron, or nickel, cobalt, nickel, copper, zinc, gallium, or germanium in those higher octaves. We can do that between silicon and phosphorus or silicon and aluminum. So the transparent aluminum now becomes possible because we can now control the pressure and change the pressure and motion conditions where we couldn't do that before because they were going by Cartesian space at 90 degrees and 45 degrees straight lines, the Euclidean space that they've made up, this orthogonal or church-like space that they've generated because they wanted to promote that cross. That was the basis of all of that. Now we open ourselves up. This is what happens when four bubbles meet. This is the negative space from when four bubbles are meeting. That's hydrogen. That's why when I went to Uganda, I was like, look, we have an entirely new system of hydrogen that I've got a patent where we're able to, you won't need projectiles in the guns anymore. If you pull up my patent for projectile.
Before we do that though, should we finish this?
Oh yeah, finish it.
Let's finish this video. And then Jamie,
and
could you also I want to see a photo of that hexagon on the top of the Saturn. So let's play this.
It's just another minute, I think.
I feel like we could do an 80-hour podcast.
dude, we haven't even got, we're just introducing linchpins.
I know.
Which is another supersymmetrical system.
I'm barely hanging on.
No, you're not. Turn it up.
I'm having a computer freak out again.
Oh no.
Yes, every time I'm shrinking this video, it's just like it doesn't like to do this.
Huh.
I don't know what's going on.
Is it the codec?
I have no control over the computer. Alt tab does nothing. Escape does nothing.
Yo.
Spacebar does nothing.
Maybe you dropped your computer.
Maybe you drop your computer, Jamie.
I'm gonna try to
But Jamie, you need a burner computer.
Yeah, they don't want their God killed. Gravity has been the thing they've been holding on to from the beginning, and it's just an effect of electricity. It's the draft left over by electricity.
Is it working now, Jamie?
It's just did like another like false reset. So let me get my stuff back together here.
But we've seen that portion of it. So what I'm saying, the
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we'll try. Oh shit. Hold on. Too many things.
This is kind of funny. If you haven't.
has this ever happened to y'all before?
No.
Fascinating.
Yeah, if you want to be paranoid.
I mean, I'm not paranoid.
I am.
I'm a bit of a skeptic. I'm a realist. If A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A is equal to C. If this has never happened before and it's always happening to me, maybe I'm just bad luck. Am I bad luck?
No, here we go. Okay.
without any gravity. And you'll see that you get a surface of the sphere on the inside with the heavier particles. So the
So
colors
are
of
you basically saying, is this saying that you guys could recreate planets?
yes, this is a particle simulation of the physics involved in making up the
Just
planet
physics.
Saturn. Like all the yeah. So the heavier particles are creating the red and the green here where the hexagon is, and those are the heavier ones creating the shell of the planet, and then the outside are lighter particles that are fluid that's creating the counter rotation of the atmosphere of Saturn, like we observe scientifically. And the red ones in the middle here are where the magnetic field is strongly polarized at the north and south poles, which gives you aurora borealis.
I have a question. Now, does this mean that you would be able to control what kind of atmosphere the planet has as well? Like you can change that? Because you can create it, that means you can change it.
We now have a system by which you can, it's the arrangement of linchpins and the axis upon which they are spinning in relation to each other. And, or vibrating. By doing that, we can create the condition, any condition that we want.
So you can have human life here, is what you're saying?
We can create.
If you're able to change and alter these external fields and understand, like at least this would give us a method of studying it in such a way that we now understand that it's external pressures being applied from the outside in, not the standard model where you have internal fission reaction and nuclear in a planet with magnetic fields from iron cores, etc. going outward. Right? That's all kind of ego based at the center. This is pretty solid evidence that everything we're observing is from the outside coming in. So the entire universe is actually creating these planets from the outside in, from space itself, the pressures.
Turning wave.
You can stop it. Now, so,
Go to that image.
like if you picture dropping a pebble into a pond or a pool, everything expands in these longitudinal waves,
Right.
perfect spheres, unless there's something else in there. But when it hits the edge, it all starts bouncing its way back. And when these returning waves meet expanding waves, that's when we get our first geometry. So this is a proof that the universe is not infinite, but finite. Because you could not have shape without the returning waves, and the waves would not return unless it was bouncing off of the edge of something.
Look how strange that is.
Bingo.
Look how strange that hexagon on the top of Saturn is. Or, yeah, that's Saturn, right?
Yep, and then we don't even, and
That is so crazy.
He explains exactly how he built it, all the angles of incidence, all the pressure systems that he used, all of that is so it can be a repeated experiment. But they've ignored this. This is in the beginning of my book. You go to my book, that's the first page on there. Before you even open it up, I've got this, and we rebuilt the Milky Way galaxy the same way, and it predicts the star arrangement better than NASA does. And this is without dark matter, this is without dark energy, this is without the standard model. So
Is dark matter, dark energy, are they primarily theoretical?
that's all theoretical. They've never witnessed it, and we couldn't prove that Michelson-Morley experiment that they did in 1887, which said that there was no effect because they tried to move a table around and change the angle of incidence for light to see if the light changed when you move the table. The experiment is like this. The mental experiment is like this. If you're going to experiment, you have an A structure, and you have an idea of how A behaves, and you have a thought that if you put A in a particular situation, it's going to turn into B. So let's picture it hypothetically like you have a bar that's maybe 6 inches long of iron, and you say, okay, well, I think if it goes into the freezer, that it's going to get shorter. So you're supposed to have 2 exact bars, 6 inches out, and leave one outside of the freezer, and put one in the freezer, and then you compare them after you see it. So A over X is equal to R times B over X. R is the result or the change between them. B is the change that occurs. R is what fraction or the X that you use in order to get back to A or to convert it to B. What they did with the Michelson-Morley experiment, because they could not get out of the ether. They couldn't step outside of the ether because it's everything around us. So they couldn't tell a difference whether they saw no result, no change. So they assumed there was a void, that there was no ether there. And that's when particle physics took off. Lorentz, a great physicist that everybody loved, entered a paper in 1904 where he was continually explaining the ether, the same way that Maxwell, all of his theories came off of there being an ether, but he was still limited by Newtonian laws and the Coulomb force of opposites attracting when it's the positive is the things that are alike that attract. But he believed that the ether was still and space was flat.
I believe the ether is related to the Akash. Join the journey.